Hi, welcome to this new panel of discussion around urban planning. In this opportunity, we would like to talk about construction of public spaces under circular economy principles. On stage with me, we have two amazing speakers. We have Natalia Lleras from the Research Center Despacio. She is the Healthy Cities Lead and Vivo Mi Calle Project Director at Despacio, who work focuses on the creation of sustainable, safe, equitable, and active public spaces, bike paths that improve the community's health. Prior to Despacio, Natalia was a mobility and road safety project manager at the World Resources Institute. On the other side, we have Alejandro Henao, external consultant for Medellín's urban planning department. He was born in Medellin, Colombia, and has a bachelor's degree in architecture, a master's degree in international planning and sustainable development from the University of Westminster, and founded by Chevening Scholarship to study in the UK. His professional career includes experience as professor, researcher, and consultant in urban planning and slum upgrading. Moderating our discussion, we have Professor Adriana Patricia López, Professor of the School of Natural Resources and Environmental Engineering in the Universidad del Valle, architect, master in urbanism, and PhD in environmental sciences. She has also a postdoctoral fellow at the McGill University in Canada, focused on participatory urban design. She has worked on research projects in the last 10 years, focusing on sustainability and informal settlements. So it's with great pleasure that I welcome you all to this panel. And I give now the word to Adriana to comment the discussion.
Thank you, Nicolas. So today we will have a very great discussion about urban planning, greening cities, and very useful strategies to support all the linkage between civil society and government and all of kind of actors that can contribute to sustainability in the city. So first of all, Natalia will focus on the lead regeneration of public spaces and creation of bike paths. So Natalia, the audience is yours.
Thank you, Adriana and Nicolas. I will begin my presentation. Let me share my screen. Can you see it now? Perfect.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about the project Vivo Mi Calle. Vivo Mi Calle, it's an initiative by Despacio. This initiative, hold on one second. Yeah. It's supported by Foundation Botner, and it's part of the program called Healthy Cities for Adolescents, which is currently being implemented in 5 countries worldwide. Vivo Mi Calle is actually, it takes place in Cali. Well, we started in Cali. This is a picture of the area where we work, which is the east of Cali. So you can get a better idea of the context. The objective of Vivo Mi Calle is to involve adolescents in the regeneration and creation of public spaces and routes, fostering the right to healthy cities. Here's a video of one of our girls from the leadership program, Sharik. And the idea of this picture is also so you get an idea of the context and the lack of public space. We barely have any sidewalks. The streets are very narrow. And this is the context that we're working with. The project has various specific objectives. But we're going to focus on the transformation. But just so you get an idea, we work with adolescents, educating and coaching them on sustainability, leadership skills, SDGs, active mobility, gender equity. And we also have a leadership course where we also take adolescents that really like these topics. It's about 40 of them. And we teach them how to be active citizens. We have a whole objective on monitoring and evaluation. And the idea here is to collect evidence on the impact of these projects, especially on the health of adolescents and the whole community. Of course, urban projects cannot be worked by itself. So we work with a lot of allies from the government and other organizations. And we also have a huge communication strategy to keep the community informed about everything that's going on and also showcase the results of the project. And finally, we have the transformations or interventions objective, which is the creation of healthy public spaces and routes with the adolescents' voice and participation. So I'm going to show you our experience so far on the creation of healthy environments. Our methodology is very simple. We use digital tablets for adolescents to select the areas that they find attractive, the areas that they avoid. Then we select one location according to the majority of the votes. The second step is based on that location, we ask them how they feel in that location. Do they like it? Do they enjoy it? Do they love it? Are they worried? Does the location make them angry? And then we connect those emotions to 29 risk indicators. These risk indicators are based also on a workshop that we did with adolescents, and they're grouped into road crashes, personal insecurity or robberies, and also invisible borders. Then we also have sexual harassment, because this is something that modifies the mobility of women. If we see, and I guess most of the women that are watching and listening, if you see a group of guys in a corner, you decide to take another direction or go their way, just to avoid what you're going to hear or what's going to happen. So anything, what we call risk, is anything that modifies or limits your access to the public space. Then we sit to think, once we have the risks, the needs, and also what we think of solutions that could improve health, we sit with adolescents to think, what can we do to make the location better for the community? And then we start implementing these solutions with them. So this is the first intervention that we worked on. We started in 2019. This is the bridge. This bridge was actually the closest way to get to the public school that you see on the right. But it was an invisible border with a high connotation of violence, of robberies, it was always empty, so children would avoid it. So we worked with 115 adolescents to improve this area. As you can see, it was always empty. This was the case before. We asked them how to improve that location, and they said, based on the violence that it had, and they said that the idea was to put more colors and plants and make sure the speeds of the motorcycles were lower, and all these, the idea or the objective was to attract more people, because when you have more people, you wouldn't have gang clashes in the area. So this is what we did. We followed by their knowledge of the context. We were worried at the beginning, of course, because we said, okay, more people, maybe it's more dangerous when we have gang clashes. And they said, no, when there's children, where there's people hanging out, they won't use that location to confront each other. So we work with them, and this is the result. It's the bridge is now called the Bridge of Color. It's a public space where children can hang out, they can play, they can improve their social, mental, and physical well-being. We have a lot of activities going on. I'm also going to talk about this later on sustainability. But this shows the difference and what you can do when you work really close to the community. As I said, our project, or what we aim to do, is not to go to this area and say, okay, this is the solution, this is the problem, and this is the solution, kind of impose what we have to do. In order for the solutions to work, it needs to come from the community and from the knowledge of their context. And in this case, we're working with the adolescents for this. This area based on the project, also, we were able to coordinate the implementation of a free Wi-Fi zone. And this was actually key during the pandemic, because children from the area, the internet connectivity is really low in the area. So children will go to this bridge to try to connect to their classes. As I said, the results is basically the well-being, the mental, the physical, and the social. When we talk about, for example, physical well-being, we're based on levels of physical activity. When we talk about social well-being, it's about trying to maintain those social connections and social cohesion in the neighborhood, and creating social cohesion in the neighborhood. And mental well-being is any activities we have. Social emotional skills trainings, we have art workshops, we have many activities to reduce stress. This was also very important during the protests that we had in Colombia, for children to improve their well-being. So as I said, we worked with 115 children, and we have more than 4,000 beneficiaries from the area. And we worked with 6 other entities, 4 from the government and 2 public schools. And you can see the bridge now. I would like to highlight here that when we first started with the bridge, as you see, the roof was different. It wasn't providing any shade from the sun or from the rain. So this is something we just implemented a month ago, which is a long-lasting solution that will give them shelter to the children that would like to, or to the children that use the space. Another thing is that when we first began, when we first did the intervention, we asked them if it was okay to put some chairs and tables. They said no, because they didn't want the gangs hanging there and making the place worse. A year after the connotation of the place changed, they asked us if we could now put the chairs and tables. The second intervention that I'm going to show you is called Aula Vivo Mi Calle. We work in this one with 256 adolescents. This was in the middle of the pandemic, actually when it started. So when we talked to them, they told us they didn't have a place to meet, to safely meet. This was an abandoned area in a public space, where we also had gang clashes. We had gangs hiding drugs and arms and weapons. It was very dark at night. And so when we saw this structure, as you can see, we saw a big opportunity to provide a location where children could continue learning and continue meeting safely during the pandemic. So we work with children in the solutions. This is, let's say, halfway through it, where we changed the place. We started doing cleaning sessions. We started painting the area with children, doing physical activity classes. As you know, for children, there were in lockdowns, so they didn't have, many of them couldn't even connect to classes even with the bridge, because they didn't have a digital device. So they were at home most of the time. Their physical activity levels dropped, and also they got a lot of stress from the economic situation of their families. So we started doing some activities so they could improve their well-being through the pandemic. And this is the location now. We have 4 areas decided by adolescents. The first one is a meeting point. I will show you pictures in a minute. This is just a place to meet and to do classes. This is where we hold our leadership course. The second is urban garden. The third one is like a dance floor. There's a huge amount of community members that like dancing, and there's a lot of dance groups. So they wanted the dance floors, and they also do aerobics and other group activities here. And the third one is like a patio where they can just hang out. This is the aula now. This is the dance floor, and the meeting point is in the back, as you can see. It's another picture of what it looks like now. And this is just to show you the activities that go on now. We have on the right upper side the picture of the dance group Generación del Raga. And during the day, and also the community members also celebrate birthdays, they celebrate showers, quinceañeras. So it shows you that the community didn't have a location where they could hold these celebrations. The results, well, we were able to coordinate also the lighting of the location with the local government. This is benefiting more than 13,000 people, which is the people that live only 3 blocks. Let's say the buffer zone is 3 blocks from the location. We made partnership with 7 entities, including an art museum, and these public space with this actually project, we won 3 awards, 2 of the UHPH 2021 as an inspiring practice, as and a best in show, and Ocupa 2021. And as I said, the objective is to involve the adolescents in other urban projects in general. So we also started talking with a project that's called Heart of the Agua Blanca district. This project is financed by the national government, and when we went to the community meetings, the community participation meetings, we noticed that there wasn't anyone younger than 59 years old. So we joined forces, and we told them we're going to bring the voice of adolescents to these projects, especially, you know, their public space, and adolescents and children are the ones using this space, these spaces. So here's what we did. We did some surveys also with adolescents where they showed us the locations that they like and also why they didn't like. This is actually a Google map. You can click on the location and it shows you why they think it's dangerous. For example, here in this area, we have an invisible border. They complain about gunshots in this area. Here in the area that they like, they say they like it because it's green, because people know them, because they feel safe. So based on that, we also asked them questions about what they had in mind for the public spaces. They wanted to build 2 bike paths. One is the purple line that you see right here, and the other is the green, teal one that is right here. And so we asked them how they felt about that, and you know how they moved around the neighborhood and all that. And this was very important because we brought the gender approach to the project. For example, the project was focusing on building bike paths, but they didn't keep in mind that 70% of young women actually walk around the neighborhood instead of using the bicycle. So by only building bike paths, they were only benefiting the male population. So they decided to do also the sidewalks and some pedestrian priority areas. Both women and men said that the area was very dark and they needed better lighting to improve safety at night. So the project joined forces with a government entity to make sure that the lighting in the area is improved. Another thing is that, of course, as Colombians, we really like soccer. But when we asked adolescents, they said, yes, we want to play sports, but not only soccer. So they decided to include multiple sport courts in the area also. And as adolescents, they also want a place that they could hang out or meet with their friends just to talk. So they did some contemplation points and they added that into the design, and they're connecting those locations to the lagoon. And this project, it will benefit more than 40,000 people. And this year, we're working on a healthy route in Palmira. We're working with the WRI and the mayor's office to implement a healthy route. We call it a healthy route because we want it, besides being sustainable and promoting physical activity, we want it to be safe. Again, talking about road safety and personal safety, and we wanted to have a gender approach or a gender focus. And this is because the last thing is because in Palmira, the modal share of bicycles is really, really high. It's about 12%. If we compare it, Bogota is 6%, 7%, and there we have almost 12% of the population moving on bikes. But only 20% of this share is by women. So we want to promote the use of the bicycle also by women in this city. And so for this, we're also collecting the information of the youth. What are those attractive locations in the corridor? What is it that they're, you know, what are the reasons not to ride a bike? What are the reasons that they have to ride a bike? And so here you can see in the map that there are attractive locations that are very clear. This is the locations for young people between 9 and 24 years old. So you can see this is a huge park. It's a water park that we have. It's called Parque del Azúcar. And then we also have the stadium area where they have pools, they have sports, they have exercise and everything. So the idea is to connect those locations with the bike path that we are creating. And so this project is more like a city project. We did a total of 1,712 surveys. We did a lighting audit. This is really important also for the gender approach. We made sure that the lighting is, they're using LED, and what lights are working, which are not, what if there are trees blocking the light, because that's really important for personal safety. We're going to do a sexual harassment awareness campaign. This is a reason why women in general don't bike on a daily basis. We're working on safe designs, as in road safety, and we're gonna have participatory urbanism activities where you see the yellow. The idea is to start painting with the youth, whatever design they decide, but to involve them in the city change. And last but not least, the sustainability of the projects. So we think a lot what happens when we leave, what happens when we're not there. And so we have started organizing the community. Now they're working by themselves. They do cleaning sessions, maintenance sessions, and they're the ones, let's say, organizing the activities that happen. So they have theater shows, they have also theater courses, they have movie nights. And here's a picture of a movie night that we had in the aula. And also the schools that support us, they're now making sure that one of their classes during the week takes place in the aula. And the idea of this is to make sure that the negative dynamics don't come back to these locations. That's it. Here are the social media channels for our project. If you want to follow us, thank you very much.
Thank you, Natalia. This is a very impressive work doing by the local perspective. So I think we will have many questions in the chat. But for now, we are going to continue with Alejandro Henao, who is from the Urban Planning Department in Medellin. He is going to show us the presentation about suburban slums in urban sustainability. So let's continue with Alejandro, and then we can continue discussing about all these great projects.
Okay, thank you, Adriana, for the introduction, and everyone here for letting us sharing our thoughts about these amazing topics. I just want to double check that you are listening to me and that you can see my presentation. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm going to talk about the suburban slums in urban sustainability. And I want to start by saying why it's important to talk about this topic nowadays. It's because population who is living in urban slums is growing during the last years. According to the United Nations, the population that will live in urban slums by 2030 will be like 1/3 of world population, which is the double of the figure that we observe nowadays. So our territory that we need to be focused on, this is how some slums looks like, especially in the periphery of the cities. But we need to make the difference between absolute poverty and relative poverty, because there is more relative poverty in those territories than absolute poverty. Because when we talk about absolute poverty, we only talk about an economic way of measure poverty that is related to the capacity of householder to afford a minimum level of nutrition and basic needs with their income. But when we talk about relative poverty, it also involves different variables like the capital available in the surrounded context to build sustainable livelihood. So it brings us like a wider perspective to approach to slums. This is a way to illustrate the assets available in a slums. So as you may see, they have human assets, social assets, physical assets, financial assets, and natural assets. And in balance, the graphic may look like a pentagon, but as those territories lack of some of those assets, the shape of the pentagon is not perfect, as you may see in green, showing that they have way more human and social assets than the others. But that is more an opportunity to work with what they have than to be focused on what they don't have, because focusing on what they have, we can build up strategies, and we can build up some other activities and programs to afford or to achieve the assets that they don't have in the future. So as the territories that we are talking about are commonly located in the periphery of the cities, which are the cheapest areas, where are the cheapest land to get, especially from people who come from the from the countryside or from other cities, looking for better ways to get money, or for better job opportunities, or just escaping from the violence. They find in those territories like cheap land where they can build up their own housing solutions, and it brings an important role for slums in sustainability, and that's like the main topic of this talk, because they are in the borders where the urbanization ends, and when some other dynamics, like rural dynamics, start to begin. And that's why they have the important role to stop the urban growing, or the unplanned urban growing, right? So as a slum is located in the periphery, they are commonly surrounded by environmentally protected area, and some other area that the local planning authorities spare to develop future housing projects, right? So cities and local planning authorities expect that those areas to be developed through the spaces that they have located to develop these new projects. But as it's more like a law, or like a framework that is not a physical border, when you say to a community that they only can build up, they can build up beyond one line or one border. It's not a physical border. Community commonly don't understand the frameworks, or the space that local authority has allocated to build up their houses. It basically don't happen that was expected. This is how local communities expect the growth to be, being respectful with environmentally protected areas, which is in green, and they want to develop new houses in, for example, the yellow space. But how it happens in real life is that community just supplied their necessity to build up their own houses, and they leverage in any free space that they find in the surrounding spaces. It doesn't matter if it is environmentally protected area, or if it's an area like allocated for a future public space. They have the necessity to get a shelter, so they're going to make use of any opportunity that they have in the surrounding context to get it. But what I want to explain here is that there are some other strategies way more effective that only set up like a regulatory planning system or a zoning map system, and is making use of the human assets and the social assets, and allowing people to be involved in projects where they are the ones who protect the environmentally protected area. And it's we can get it by a realization of regulations, including and scaling up community-driven initiatives, partnership and strategic alliances, and developing community skills for future development, right? And I want to delve in this concept because basically when you don't give to a community the sense of belong, of a common space, anyone can use it and anyone can claim that space as their own. But when you bring the community, as Natalia showed us, like the opportunity to be involved in activities in that space, and that they start to be engaged in activities that will benefit all members of the community, they will start to take care of that spaces. They will start to to be there to protect it, and they will be there to heritage this space to their kids and to future generations, because they feel that their space belongs to whole community, and no one can get benefits from this space as just by themselves. And I want to show you a special case here in Medellin, Colombia, which is the second biggest city of Colombia, because we have an important distribution, urban distribution. We are located in a valley, which is crossed by a big river, like the main river of the city, which is Medellin River. And the city started to grow from the heart of that valley through the mountains, right? But the new developments of slums are located up hills, like near the top of the mountains, and are spaces that are becoming growing and growing, despite of the zoning map for special uses allocates to the top of the mountain environmentally protective areas. So we can see here that the brownish areas are slums areas, and they're just next to the areas allocated for environmentally protected areas. So they play an important role to preserve those areas as it. But what happened? This is the use map proposed by the local planning authority. But when we see that this first circle, we can see that next to it, there are green areas which are willing to be protected. But as there are not on a specific border, community don't know what is the limit. They are only just claiming or placing their houses where they see the opportunity to do it. And the border is now being developed by new construction through the protective area. So looking at this situation, the local authority wanted to stop this to happen. So I don't know how to stop writing. So please give me 1 second to come back to presentation. So we're having issues to.
We're seeing your screen right now, so.
I'm seeing the pen to draw over over the screen, but now I don't know how to get back to the presentation. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, I think I'm close. Okay, now I get it. So okay, so as I was saying, the planning authority just asked to the University Pontificia Bolivariana to create a methodology that helped them to stop that unplanned urban growing through the protective areas. And the university just came up with a methodology, which is named Mejoramiento Integral de Barrios, which is an urban upgrading methodology, which involves multiple stakeholders engagement and bottom-up strategies, because they understood that the only way to stop urban growing, unplanned urban growing, was involving the community, which was the main stakeholders and the main the main people involved in the issue as it. So they developed a methodology that started by gathering information from those territories, because as they grow that fast, the planning authorities don't have enough information of what is the exact number of buildings that they are, and what are the number of dwellings that are in those neighborhoods. So the methodology starts by gathering information in the site, talking with communities, and diagnosing what are the main issues that they have. It's through working with the community, that includes mapping the social and physical capitals, alliances between local leader, community, and volunteers, and translation of the information gathered to technical language. We also listen to the community with workshops, because we recognize that there, as anyone else, know their own issues and know how to solve it. So they have in their ideas what they want their territories to transform in. So the process is very careful to collect all those expectations that the community have, to translate it in a project that later on can solve all their needs. And the project also wants to develop or to build up skills in the community, because we want them to be autonomous in future to develop what the local planning authority bring them as public spaces, or new roads, or new facilities, as schools or hospitalities, or anything else that they need. So the strategy is focused on make that the border, or the territories in the border, reach that high quality of life, that they become unsustainable territories with a quality of life that any other zone in the city. So, for example, places that look like this, which lacks of, for example, accessibilities, or public spaces, or adequate houses, are transformed in projects like this, which start to work with like the identity of the communities, not only to bring them housing solutions that that an architect just came up with the idea that they have to have, but with solutions that includes social dynamics, like for example the relationship with the surrounding context, or the dynamic of community if they were used to gather in social spaces. So new project includes social spaces for them to gather and develop different activities there. But the most important thing is that when the planning authority and the local authority wants to implement those new kind of projects, they also develop, as you can see in these images, public spaces, because they work with the sense of belonging to stop the urban growing to spread to the protective areas, because they work not only with the term or with the meaning that the protective areas are only for environmental use, but also for community uses. And when you change the mindset of community and you tell them that the environmental protective area belongs to everyone, then everyone starts to be the person who takes care of that territory, and the community start to stop different people to squat in those areas as it. That was like the solution that Medellin found to stop those territories to growing through the environmentally protected area. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and if you have any question that want to ask me, I will be more than pleased to answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alejandro. Very, very impressive work done by Medellin in the last almost 15 years, I think. Well, we have so many questions in the chat, so I'm going to start by the questions addressed to Natalia, and then we are going to continue with the discussion. So, Natalia, how can Cali citizens participate in these interventions?
Well, the next one is actually in an informal settlement, kind of similar to what Alejandro is showing. We're working in El Valladito. And the idea is it's very interesting because they have, it's an informal settlement, and they have made sure the community that no one builds anything on that public space, that say, or that that space where children play. So that's the location. So if they want to participate in the next interventions, they can only write to our Facebook or Instagram, and we will invite them to when we do the transformation.
Okay, and there is another question related to this. Has Despacio thought about doing similar projects in Cali, maybe in Comuna 20, like Siloé or in Terrón Colorado?
So the project was aiming to reach many other areas, but then the pandemic happened. So during that year, we could only focus in one. The project is 3-year long. Our financial, let's say, support, it's until April 2022. And we're aiming for a second phase. And in the second phase, we will consider other locations in Cali.
Okay. Thank you, Natalia. And there is also a question about funding. Who is funding this kind of interventions?
So you can go, Alejandro.
Is the question for both of us? Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Okay, I want to tell that this is a very wide answer, because one of the most difficult things to develop a social project is to get funds to make it. So when I may say that city is growing faster than local authorities can handle it. And it's difficult because when you present one of these upgrading projects to a mayor, the project is amazing, but the impact of this project is not enough in relation to the amount of money that they need to invest in this community. So for us, the biggest challenge was to make a financial proposal for the local authority where many stakeholders were involved. Because when we talk about upgrading of slums areas, we also are talking about a very strong market, which is the real estate market, which in Latin America is growing in speculation and pricing and everything. So we had to play with that to boost or to make our project attractive, not only make that the fund were relied on public funds, because as we know that funds in Latin America from the public are limited. But so we had to also include some other stakeholders by adding a surplus of new houses and inviting new people, of course, with community permission to live with them, explaining them that we needed money and we needed the project to be funded by some other people. So we needed to offer to the market some other house to sell to get money, but in order to benefit community, because if we have more money, we could we could have done some other upgrades to the former public space. But I can say it like that simple, but it's not that, because all of this has to has to have the permission of community. If they disagree with some other people to get into the community and to live with them, they only reject that, and we would have to I don't know, find some other ways to finance the project. But for us, that was like the solution in the project that I shown. Community agreed with some other people to come to the community and live with them, so we could get not only public fund but also funds from some other companies dedicated to build up buildings, basically.
Thank you, Alejandro. You're doing the point. I think it's very important to put all the actors together and all the resources together. But I have a question back. Who is administrating those resources in the case of Medellin? Are only the alcaldía, the mayors doing that? Or each one of the actors are administrating their own resources?
Yeah, I think it depends on many things, because the city only is allowed to build up in public spaces or in land that belongs to the city, right? Because they can invest in private pieces of lands, right? So the process starts with community like making processes to get the land and to bring the land to the city. And that process, and when it starts, all resources are managed by the community or by the community leaders. But beyond that point, when we get the lands to be public, after that point is all like in hands of the city mayor or the planning authority, which also can bring the lands to a private to develop it. But it comes after a whole urban plan where they or we allocate zones to be developed by private, but also by public. But first, the very first step is to get the land to be public for us to can develop like the whole urban plan, which includes not only buildings, it also includes roads or different facilities as hospitalities or schools or any other kind of facility that the community needs to build up their livelihoods, right? So the process has like both managing funds or either private stakeholder as public stakeholders as well.
Thank you. And from the side of Natalia, I understand that the Espacio is like an NGO. So how can you fund this kind of local interventions and how do you manage the resources?
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the presentation, we are financed by a foundation partner. It's a Swiss foundation, and they have a program called Healthy Cities for Adolescents. In 2018, we presented a grant proposal for this project and we won it. So this is the implementation of that grant, and that grant will cover us until April 2022. So yeah, so the idea is, to get a second phase of the project, and for that that's why we're building all the monitoring and evaluation tools, and we're monitoring the impact of these type of projects in the community, so we can justify a second phase of the project. And I think the benefits also go deeper than just a public space, right? For example, for some adolescents, they tell us they've gained independence, which at that age is very important. You see children in Amsterdam, they go to school by themselves, since they're very little. In Colombia, it's very difficult for them to move around in these areas, is because of invisible borders. These are borders that they cannot cross because they're from another neighborhood and they could be in danger if they cross those borders. So independence is one of those things that we're also tracking, and we're tracking also the use of the public space. Who's using it? When are they using it? What ages do they have? Are they women? Are they children? And all that to show that these projects have a great impact in these type of communities that need it the most.
Okay, thanks, Alejandra. Natalia, sorry. Well, I have a question for both of you. Having into account that sustainability also consists in linkage, how can urban greening plans from the side of Alejandro and local interventions from the side of Natalia contribute to protecting and restoring the environment from a participative perspective? I don't know, maybe Alejandro?
Okay, thank you. From a participative perspective, okay, I think that now urbanism has changed the mindset of how city is planned, because especially here in Latin America, that we have very strict and regulatory planning system that allocate special zones for a specific use. We thought that only by doing that, we were protecting the resources or the places that we were allocating to keep green or to remain green. But we found out that it didn't happen as it. So we started to work with people, because people, we need to develop like in people mindset that public resources or natural resources belongs to everyone. So that was the most important thing. So I want to mention that, for example, here in Medellin, and especially in the Aburrá Valley, which is composed by 10 cities conurbated. First, we started by like setting up an area on top of mountain that we allocated as a public park, right? So we set up a goal that by 2050 we wanted it to be a public park. So we started to make it real by telling dwellings in the periphery to protect and to restore it. But I think that what Natalia shown us was very like useful and valuable, because it showed us how it not only talk to people that, okay, you need to preserve this empty area. It doesn't work like that, because we are talking to communities that we as city have adopted with them, from that came from a long time before, because they lack of many things that the rest of the city have. For example, public spaces or facilities, or access to high quality public transportation. So you can only tell them like, okay, you are going to protect it, you can use it, and you won't have any benefit from this empty space, because they have a lot of necessities. Probably they have more needs than any other citizen in the formal city. So they need to get from those spaces benefits. So that's the point where some agencies or some initiatives, for example, as what Natalia shown us, or initiatives from the public administration, needs to start to invest in those territories, because they need to bring them like the feeling of worth that they need to feel. They need to feel that they are included in the city, they are citizens, and their territory is worth it to be protected. After, like beyond that point, they start to feeling it, and they start to applying it by protecting this territory. But it only happens with an invest. When you upgrade empty areas, it can be like with a specific path, or public spaces, or a playground, there are many strategies, but they need to know and they need to feel that their territory is worth to be protected. So that is what Medellin is doing. That is how Medellin is protecting their natural resources, like upgrading the borders and making the borders like high quality public spaces for the communities located in those borders, protect them as worth territories to be protected, basically.
Yeah, I agree with everything Alejandro is saying. I would only talk about the challenges. It's not that easy to work with the community. We don't have a very strong community or participatory processes in Colombia. The feeling that we always get is that they don't trust, what's going to happen. So when we first got to the neighborhood, they told us, so what, you're going to take a picture and then leave? Trying to say that, this is what usually happens. They say, okay, yeah, we did a meeting, here's a picture, they participated, and then now we can go. So building that trust takes a lot of effort, trying to show that, whatever results, for example, for children, is not only about them telling us how they think the space should go, but also showing, okay, last meeting, this is what you propose. We cannot, for example, have a pool. That's always the case in Cali. They always want a pool so they can swim. But we can have this, and explaining them the process and why some of their solutions are not taken into account. That way they understand why not, and they can see what has been, what ideas are also taking part of the project. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges is gaining that trust. The other one is the invisible borders. I think it would be, we do have a map of the invisible borders in the area we work, but this is key for anything, because even if you have a public space that they can use, children from another neighborhood cannot go there. And sometimes when you do the meetings with children, they say, oh yeah, but we cannot hang out with them because they're from this neighborhood. So it's building a social cohesion is also a huge challenge. And this type of information, it's something that you need to keep in mind when you do these kind of projects. What are the places that they can go to and what are not? And the other one, of course, is engagement. So it's difficult to maintain an adult engaged, and to maintain children engaged is even a bigger challenge. So our methodologies are very flexible. When we see something's not working, we just decide to do another exercise right on the spot, because it's difficult to keep with so many things going on, to keep children engaged. So I would say those are the challenges, and added to that is to exactly what Alejandro was saying. We have the public space, or they had it, but no one was using it, so it was completely abandoned. Nobody cared of what happened. Nobody was cleaning, for example, when the government doesn't, they didn't have any ownership. They don't have any ownership of these locations sometimes, and gaining that takes also a lot of effort.
Yes, I agree. It's funny that Natalia mentioned it, because the first approach is quite difficult when you come to the community and say, okay, I want to develop with you a social project. Like the first answer is, okay, so, but I don't trust you, because they had so many processes where they were just worn out, or they were just used, but an agency or a company or a politician, and they just were left behind in the process. So first is, that's I think that the most difficult part of that first step, when you build up a trustworthy relationship, where you say, okay, I'm able to do it, but I'm only will be able to do it if you allow me to work with you. And the second one, I may say, community must feel that solutions don't came from anyone else than they themselves. But as Natalia mentioned, that's difficult, because that also happened to me in every workshop with community. The first need that everyone has is a pool. But when you just delve in that thought, it's not because they need a pool. It's what pool represents to that community, right? First, represent like a sense of wealthy, because having a pool is like having like quality of life. Having a pool is having like a space to play. Having a pool is having access to, I don't know, to a space to gather with family, or even to training, or to make some sports right there. So it also represents health for community. So you need to start to transfer or to translate those ideas the community has in not what they need, or what they say they need, but what it represents to them. Even more, because what you propose to them, it can be like an economic issue for them in the future. And if you take literally what they said, and you say, okay, I'm going to build up a pool. Okay, who is going to take care of that pool? Who's going to finance the maintenance of that pool, right? So that will be a big issue for community later on. So I think that's, like to understand and to translate those needs for community is important. And to wrap up, I want to say that it's important that community feels that the project was built up for them and to them. Because if they feel that everything was given, then after that to build up like a sense of belonging is so hard. So they need to feel that the resources, even if it wasn't economic, but for example, workforce, for example, if they can add some workforce of some members of their community, they start to feel that what they are building in association with any other company or with a public authority or anything else, it also belongs to them, because they make effort to make it possible.
Thank you, Alejandro. We call that in our lab, we have a urban intervention lab in Valle. We call that like reinterpretation. We cannot just doing the things literally. So we have to communicate from our side, technical side, academic side, to the community, and from the community's needs, we have to translate those needs, not just literally. I have a last question for both of you. Where do you think this kind of two forces match? From the institutional perspective, those initiatives that comes from the plans, the programs, the projects, the big strategy planning, those coming from the communities, those bottom-up projects, those local interventions, where can they match? Because sometimes we find that they just crash. They only pass one over the other, and the interventions has not success.
Yeah, I think that's key also. The reason why we're doing a leadership program and a training program, it's to show them more than other possibilities, because another thing is that, for example, the other day we took them to downtown Cali and they didn't know this area. They were surprised by the sidewalks, they were surprised because these people, you know, usually live within, or the adolescents usually live within their communities only. But more than that, we try to train them in the technical aspects, so they know what's road safety. You know, they understand, or they can complain about motorcycles going too fast in front of their house, but you know, how do we solve this issue? And so we tell them, you know, what is traffic calming and why the sidewalks should be longer and what's wrong with the bike paths, and we try to teach them all that also. So when they propose a solution is something that has some kind of technical support. Otherwise, we do what Alejandro is saying. We translate their needs into, okay, based on our experience, we could have this or this because you wanted somewhere that you can hang out. And we make sure, okay, here we can put chairs and tables, and we can make sure what type of meetings would you like to have? What type of reunions with the community would you like to have? And so is it a lot of people? It's just a place to hang out with your friends. So we translate all that, all those needs, all the risks also, if they complain about not being able to cross a street because you know, there, as I said, there's men there that say ugly things to them. You know, what do we do about street harassment? They are conscious now about how that limits your mobility. Also for personal safety, we understand lighting is key. So when they say no, it's, you know, they always they're always like robbing there or something, we say, okay, how is the lighting at night? And because this is a huge influence, so we try to always explain to them the technical aspects so they can, you know, they also learn. And from the next time, I always put the example of a pedestrian, or we call it anti-pedestrian bridges, which are everywhere in Colombia. It's not a road safety solution. It's a solution to make sure that cars never stop, right? And it's very uncomfortable for people, especially elderly and children, or moms with children, because they have to go up and down, you know, while cars have the priority. And not only that, but we proved that in Bogota, they're more dangerous than not having a pedestrian bridge, because what happens is that speeds are higher because cars don't have to stop, right? So it's dangerous for all users, not only pedestrians. So anyway, we try to show them that, because sometimes when we say, okay, we have a critical location here, they always say, oh, we want a pedestrian bridge. So we try to, from the technical side, explain to them why the pedestrian bridge is not a viable solution, or the right solution for pedestrians. So this is the kind of middle ground that we get to, but it's always trying to show them and explain to them from the technical area. And just one last thing is, for example, I have a really interesting quote, thing that happened to me. Once I went to one of the schools where we were teaching our courses, and this kid saw me with the shirt with the logo from the program, and he said, oh no, please don't tell me we don't have a class with you today. I'm like, why do you want to? Oh my God, it's so boring, please don't. And so that was at the beginning of the program where I said, okay, we cannot as technicians talk to them one-to-one, because, you know, it's really boring to them. So we have 2 educational advisors that actually translate all the technical stuff to something they can relate to and they can understand. That way our classes are not bit boring, but they're interesting now, and they understand the concepts, and we're talking the same language now. But of course, you cannot talk to them as you talk to, you know, our peers, or as we talk here. You know, talking to the community needs another type of language, and that was something that we learned early on, and we were able to fix before we lost many of the children.
I think I lost connection when Adriana explained the question, but I got that is like what is a medium point in between community and like technique, language, and everything.
More related to the initiatives. So which one is the best match moment to link those kind of initiatives, that those coming from the institutional part, like from the mayor, and those coming from the community, because in some cases they are just fighting each other.
Okay. Yes, I think that for me, like the key point is to keep community as the main character of the play, right? Basically, like advisors and some other professionals, and even the public authority or the mayor or anything else from the public side must be like in the background, and you can be like an advisor, and you can direct the community, but community also needs to feel that they are the ones taking decisions. They are the ones like leading the program. Otherwise, you're going to be involved like in a roles play or in a power play, that which is the most important, or which is the ones who has like, or who is the powerful one. And in these cases, you need to avoid any kind of confrontation, right? If they think that if they want to lead the process, you are going to bring all tools for them to lead that process, and you're going to advise from your perspective and from your expertise. And as Natalia said, you are going to try to explain them in a very smooth way, or in a very clear language that they easily get how they can do things, and it states some challenges, because it's not you have to start to making difference between some groups. It's not the same when you talk with to child or to children that when you talk with young people, or when you talk with older people, right? All of them need different spaces. All of them need different kind of languages to get the message that you are telling them. And you can rush by transmitting that message. If you need to make 5 different meetings to explain the same things to 5 different kind of groups, you will need to do it to get the expected outcome, right? You just can't gather everyone, because if you gather everyone, then will be mother with children that can be focused on, because they will be taking care of their children, and or probably children will be playing around when you are trying to explain and interrupting you, or there are many different things, right? And you also need to like to seduce in a good way to community to be involved. Things like okay, we are going to make gather to cook any local food like sancocho, and there we are going to talk about that project. So that will be like attractive for people, because okay, we're going to gather to have a social activity. We're going to eat like good food or tasty food, and even more, we're going to talk about this topic. So you start to make things attractive for them. We have to remember that community has been worked out for many other stakeholders that only wants to use them. So they basically just lost any kind of yes, like any kind of focus or any kind of attraction in those processes, that they feel that just use them and then left behind. So the answer to wrap up basically is making all time them feel that they lead the process, that the process belongs to them, because that will guarantee that in future, when you leave the project, when you disappear, they are going to keep moving forward, taking care of the spaces, maintaining it. And basically, as you already gave them the tools, and they understood that they can get fund from the public, from the private, that they can develop projects, that they are self-sustainable, not only environmentally, but also economic, they will understand that they have the possibility to keep looking forward, to keep building up social strategies, transforming their own environment by themselves. And you change their role from a passive one to an active one. So that for me is the most important, like learning in all this time.
Thanks, Alejandro and Natalia. I think we have some conclusions here. Community engagement is one of the key. Trust, continuity in the process, good communication, and involvement of all kind of actors in the project can make us shaping sustainable cities in Latin America. So thank you very much for all the projects you are presenting today, and thanks for the audience to the audience for being here, and thank you very much for all of this.
Thank you for these amazing presentations. I would like all the audience to see our next keynote about future energy system in Latin America, a very interesting keynote. And again, thank you to our speakers, Alejandro and Natalia, for these amazing projects, and the moderation from Adriana was excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye. Bye.